Welcome back to HQ Spotlight. The Detroit Lions have high expectations ahead of the 2025 season. Besides replacing their two coordinators that went on to be head coaches, the Lions also play in one of the most competitive conferences in the league. I spoke with former Lions running back Jamal Williams yesterday on HQ. He said as long as this team has Dan Campbell, they can't go wrong. Williams also noting how much Campbell cares about his players, making that 53-man roster decision much more difficult for the head man.
We're looking for the best 69 players we can find, and how do we keep all of them? You know, because we're going to need all of them, and that's the challenge. So, you know, we got some pretty good competitions going. We got some guys that have really raised their play, and they've caught our eye, and so you know, and there's some guys here, you know, my mind's not made up, that my eyes are open. You know, I mean, we're going to take it down to the wire.
Lions, of course, taking on the Texans Saturday to wrap up the preseason slate as we welcome in our NFL analysts, Tyler Sullivan and Mike Renner. Guys, let's start with a position battle to watch in this matchup, and we're going to stick with the Lions first to start. Both of you guys are looking at the offense. So a position, Tyler, we rarely think about in Detroit is the backup quarterback job, because Jared Goff usually pretty healthy and available. But if Dan Campbell had to make a choice, he said he trusts Kyle Allen more than Hendon Hooker at this point. We did see Allen struggle week one in that Hall of Fame game, but what do you make of this backup quarterback situation right now in Detroit?
Also, welcome to week 3 of the preseason, right, where we're talking backup quarterbacks. Hopefully, Detroit Lions fans never have to worry about Hendon Hooker or anything like that. They can solely focus on Jared Goff. But I think that if we're looking at this backup quarterback spot, there's a chance that the Detroit Lions only have 2 quarterbacks in terms of their 53-man roster. Maybe they have someone on the practice squad. But it looks like you said, Kyle Allen, you talk about Dan Campbell, he seems like a big trust guy. And when he says he trusts Kyle Allen, and not to say he didn't trust Hendon Hooker, but he definitely trusts Kyle Allen a little bit more, I would be very nervous if I were Hendon Hooker. And obviously, you know, there was a minute there where it felt like he was a steal at the NFL draft out of Tennessee, coming in the 3rd round, coming into the league injured, maybe a developmental piece behind Jared Goff to see maybe if he could be something of an heir apparent. Hasn't turned into that. You look at this preseason, completing 55.2% of his passes, 2 interceptions, 0 touchdowns. So we're really going to need him to show out in this finale to really feel comfortable maybe penciling him in as that 3rd quarterback if they keep 3.
Yeah, I'm looking at the guys that they're going to be throwing to, because I think the wide receiver 3 battle is still up in the air here. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, those are in place. Those guys aren't going anywhere. But Tim Patrick was kind of the number 3 by default, but they drafted Isaac TeSlaa here in the 3rd round to unseat him. And I think early on this preseason, it looks like he may be doing just that. Uber reliable hands, great at the catch point, willing blocker, good size. There's a lot to like from this guy early on, and he's a heck of an athlete too. NFL ready route runner in a number of different ways. So I think there's a world in which Isaac TeSlaa is seeing touches earlier than Tim Patrick is come early on this season.
I love when you guys are in sync, because we're going to go from your question marks there at wide receiver 3 to a guy that Tyler's been looking at in Isaac TeSlaa. And I feel like, you know, this is the perfect story that we need in the NFL. A kid who shows up to his visit in a custom jersey of his own, betting on himself, making a name for himself. But Tyler, when you look at the football side of this for Isaac TeSlaa, why has he been your star in Detroit?
Well, I'll echo everything that Renner just said. We're talking about someone that could be the 3rd wide receiver in the Detroit Lions offense when it's all said and done. You look at what he was able to do this preseason, touchdowns in both games so far. And really, it's interesting because you look at this unit and we always are talking about the absence of Ben Johnson and how is this going to look. But then you look at the depth chart and you go, there's so many weapons. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jamison Williams, Sam Laporta, the duo in the backfield. And now we have another young wide receiver possibly emerging here. And as Renner was saying, Tim Patrick, no slouch, but was kind of the 3rd wide receiver by default. You now have TeSlaa coming in and really could take what is already a lethal offense to another level. So again, the rich keep getting richer in Detroit. Yes, we'll see how it all comes together without Ben Johnson, but there's no denying that this offense is oozing with talent.
Yeah, the Lions have to be happy as heck with their rookie wide receiver class, because my guy who's been a standout for them, you're going to have to squint to go find it. I think on that graphic, he was wide receiver 3. He was 3rd on the depth chart. But I guarantee you, after the first couple games of the preseason, this guy is making the Lions roster. It's Jackson Meeks, the rookie out of Syracuse. He was a UDFA, but now through 2 games, 176 yards, 2 touchdowns. He has been great after the catch, great getting open, and my favorite, he has been their best blocker in the running game. This guy has held the point at a number of different times, and if you want to make a roster as a wide receiver, a rookie wide receiver in that offense, that's exactly how you do it. So Jackson Meeks, heck of a start to the preseason so far for him.
We put it in big, bold letters so that you don't have to squint at home. Jackson Meeks, a guy to watch for in that wide receiver room. Of course, on the other side of this matchup is a Texans team looking to bury that sophomore slump allegations for C.J. Stroud, and it all starts, as you both know, with a solid O-line. So no surprise that you guys are both looking for guys who stood out in that unit. Mike, I'll come to you first. What do you like about a guy like Ed Ingram?
Yeah, Ed Ingram, they traded for him this offseason from the Minnesota Vikings, former 2nd-round pick. A lot to prove this year in a contract year, but he's been a standout. No pressures allowed so far this preseason, and obviously playing with the starters, that means a little more than not allowing pressure like in the 3rd, 4th quarter, right? And he's been the 4th highest graded guard in the NFL, according to PFF. Moving guys off the line of scrimmage, he's given them a lot to think about, because I think they traded for him, and what they gave up, it was more of just a depth piece. But now, if they want to start him at right guard and Titus Howard at right tackle, I think they might feel comfortable with that. So giving them some options here and some flexibility with how they shuffle this offensive line.
Yeah, and I'm going to stay on the offensive line and go with Ariante Ursary, their 2nd-round pick this offseason. You know, it's kind of been a weird year for the Houston Texans in terms of their offensive line. You're wondering, really? They're going to trade away Laremy Tunsil, their best offensive lineman? But it does seem like they may have found something here. At the beginning of camp, it did feel like Cam Robinson might be earmarked to start at left tackle. He's been dealing with injuries, so now Ursary has come in, and don't just take my word for it in terms of how well he's performed. C.J. Stroud, in particular, has been singing his praises after the preseason game most recently, even as early as today in their practices with the Detroit Lions, how impressive the rookie has been. So when we're talking about trust along an offensive line where C.J. Stroud is coming off a year where he was sacked more times than any other quarterback not named Caleb Williams, that should speak volumes in terms of how this rookie is progressing. If he gives them just serviceable play either on the left side or on the right side, that is going to be invaluable for them to rebound off of what was a sluggish sophomore year for C.J. Stroud.
And we're going to keep hammering home how poor the offensive line was in Houston yesterday, Mike, because that is where you're going next. When we talk about a position battle to watch, you are still looking at the offensive line.
Yeah, I think Tyler just hit the nail on the head with saying Ursary's impressed guys, and maybe both tackle positions are still up in the air. Like, he could start at left tackle, he could start at right tackle. There are 5 different guys right now that could potentially be their starter at some point in time this season. I think they have to be a little disappointed, though, in Blake Fisher, their 2nd-round rookie from last year, coming out of Notre Dame. Was always going to be a project, but you hoped he took the step forward, took that right tackle job that he played at Notre Dame, and that he locked it down, and that just hasn't happened. So for all those reasons, they really, both jobs, left and right tackle, seemingly are still in flux right now, given all the moving parts along this offensive line.
The offensive line is obviously the biggest question for the Houston Texans, but right now, I think maybe 1B or number 2 is the running game. I don't necessarily know what it's going to look like come week 1, specifically because we don't know the status of the guy that's at the top of this depth chart in Joe Mixon. Has been dealing with a foot, ankle injury all throughout the offseason, hasn't participated. The vibes feel like he could start the year on PUP. Now, we don't know that, but again, it just feels like this is a player that's not going to be made available to the Houston Texans to start the year, which is a kind of an underrated big blow. This has been a huge acquisition for them last year. Rushed for over 1,000 yards, was a key piece for them. So now, what are we looking at? Are we looking at Nick Chubb? Are we looking at Woody Marks, their 4th-round pick out of USC? He rushed for 40 yards on 7 rushes the other day. I just wonder how this looks because, again, the protection is obviously number 1, but number 2 of what helps a quarterback in terms of helping him with the passing game is a solid running game. And Nick Chubb is good in name. I'm curious to see if he's good in practice.
A name that did flash on that list was Dare Ogunbowale. He's been flashing, and I just want to mention that he is the brother of Dallas Wings star Arike Ogunbowale. So some talented family genes there as the Houston Texans look to take the next step. Guys, we appreciate the time. Stick around for a few more minutes, though. We're going to be back with you in just a bit. Before we get there, though, take a look at the Week 1 games for these two teams. Of course, we're excited for the Lions at Packers. That one on CBS, September 7th, 4:25 Eastern. Our NFL Today crew is going to be out there as well as the Packers slightly favored. And then the second on CBS in that window, Texans at Rams. The Rams are favored there, but a lot of questions when it comes to that Rams offense with Matthew Stafford.